Hello, it's time for Factory Talk, and it's the last show of a year that none of us are likely to forget in a hurry. But has 2020 been all bad? Well, that's one of the topics we'll be talking about today with my guest, Damian Haylor. He's the Managing Director at the Bristol-based company POPcomms. Damian, it's great to have you on the show. As always, let's get you to start off by introducing POPcomms and telling us a bit about how you got the company to where it is today.
Thank you, Richard. So POPcomms, we've been sort of in business since 2004, and our focus is really around helping businesses and sales teams when they go out on the road and meet customers, is really helping them to sort of explain exactly what they do as a business and really focusing on the value that they deliver and giving those sales teams access and the customer to all that really valuable information to help them in that conversation and really get down to the essence of what's required. So I guess you can call us sort of a sales communication business, but with that we bring in sort of the creative side, how to visually tell that story so it's very memorable and powerful, as well as the technology as well. So creating the interactive sales tools which connect into a business, pull that information in, and really allow the sales rep, when they're on the road, to access anything that they need. So that's effectively what we do as a business.
Yeah, I mean, we get a mixture of businesses on Factory Talk. Some are sort of traditional, if I can use that word, manufacturers, some from the digital sector. I mean, as you've said, you've been around now for approaching 20 years. So let's talk about the relationship between those two sectors. Have you seen a change, and how do you see the relationship now?
Well, I mean, in 20 years, there's just been, a phenomenal change. And actually, I'd say probably in the last 5 years, that's really accelerated in terms of the technology that's out there and access to information. And, the internet has had a big part to play in that, especially when it comes down to buyers. As I said, we're very much focused on sort of sales communications. So how a company talks to another company, buyers or sellers. And, that access to information has really opened up the field to buyers to research suppliers, to find out a lot of information before a company maybe is even aware that a potential customer is looking at them. But, obviously digital has impacted every aspect of almost every business, and probably manufacturing more significantly than others, I would say. So, it's a real challenge. Things are accelerating incredibly quickly, and businesses are becoming more complex as a result. So,
yeah, you've spoken about how technologies have changed. Do you think also, which is probably just as important, that attitudes have changed over that period as well towards digital companies and digital technologies?
Yes, absolutely. I think a few years ago, people were, slightly tentative about adopting new technologies. Had they been tried and tested? It was very expensive to implement some of these systems and technologies. But as I say, there's been a huge acceleration in the past few years. And I think really now, it's the norm. We have to embrace it. We see it all the time with Industry 4.0 and the talk around smart factories. And I think, unfortunately, with COVID, that has seen a massive acceleration in the need to adopt digital, certainly in terms of, sales and marketing, how you can sort of talk and meet with customers, as that sort of face-to-face contact has obviously been, completely blown away at the moment.
Sure.
So we have seen a massive change this year alone in that space.
Yeah, I mean, that was something I sort of hinted at the start of the programme, that whilst, don't get me wrong, we all wish COVID had not come along.
Yeah.
But it might have given certain industries, certain people within industries, certain manufacturers, certain whatever, that little kick, that little push that possibly they were a little bit reluctant to take prior to COVID.
Yeah, I mean, we've definitely seen that, with our client base. We work with a lot of advanced manufacturing, healthcare and technology businesses. And it's quite interesting, sort of conversations we were having at the end of the last year and in January about bringing clients onto digital sales platforms, and maybe they were looking at sort of implementing them towards the end of 2020. Within weeks of lockdown in March, the priority had just been brought right forward for these businesses to get these tools launched extremely quickly. So it's been quite dramatic.
Yeah.
But as you say, I mean, it's not great with COVID, but actually these are things that needed to happen anyway, and I think it just accelerated that process. And really shone a light on the value of these tools to businesses.
And the technology has changed and adapted too?
Yes, it has. Because clearly, one of the big issues, certainly for sort of manufacturers and in B2B, is that events couldn't take place. So, events were very important for a lot of these businesses. They meet their current customers, new customers, they can show off their latest solutions and technology. So how do you keep those conversations going? You can't just stop doing that. So, clearly a lot of businesses had to look at remote selling, sort of virtual platforms. And, prior to COVID, we did a lot of event work for clients. I don't think we were ever asked, can we have a virtual platform as well? So it's not only sort of, the manufacturers, it's also the sort of the technology suppliers, the digital companies that provide these platforms were also caught on the back foot. And that has had to sort of develop and mature in a very short space of time, a massive learning curve for all of us.
And do you think now the genie is out the bottle? This will not change. We won't go back in the post-COVID world.
It is well and truly out, and I think the sort of the latest sort of research. Hopefully, something will show up on screen. Some charts from sort of McKinsey and HubSpot are showing that from a buyer's point of view, they actually prefer remote selling from their suppliers, and as a result, I think sort of a hybrid model is really here to stay, where you mix where you can or you have to sort of meet face to face, and that is sort of complemented with the remote side. I mean, really, there is very little reason to meet face to face if you have the right processes, systems in place to be able to facilitate those remote conversations.
Let's talk about the use of digital technologies, digital sales tools as against traditional methods, and talk to us about that, and also about how you work with clients.
Yeah, so I mean, in terms of traditional, we don't say, ditch all your old methods, you're going to go completely digital, because, at the end of the day, it's still people talking to people. But what's important to us is how you kind of help that conversation, how you support that conversation. So, I think some salespeople, they've been with a business for a long time, they really know their area of expertise, and they're very eloquent. They can talk to a customer, they understand about sort of value and how they articulate that message. But then, there's younger generations or less experienced people, and, buyers are changing as well. As I said, time is getting much shorter in terms of sort of meeting time. They're doing a lot more sort of research online. So when you do get to talk to a customer, you've really got a very narrow window of opportunity to get your point across, to really understand what they need, where the value lies for them. So I think it's really a combination of the two. You still need sort of those old traditional methods, but the digital complements. It reinforces, it helps people to tell that story more effectively and more precisely, especially as businesses are getting more complex. It's harder to do that.
How do you recommend businesses get started then?
Well, I don't think, sort of sales and digital tools, it's all part of sort of the wider digital transformation conversation that's going out. But I think in the past, people have always been very worried that it's probably a very complex and, you need consultants to come in and help. But, we don't see it that way. From doing it over 20 years, we have a very sort of clearly defined process, and we use sort of agile within the business, and you can apply that to the development of sales tools. So it's about really sort of starting small, really understanding your customer, their needs, their challenges, and how you can phrase your narrative to really sort of drill into exactly what their requirements are, and sort of position yourself rather than just talking about product, but more of a strategic partner. So that's actually quite a sort of simple thing that businesses can do right away, and just think about sort of the material, the presentations that they create, to really focus in on that.
And what can POPcomms do then to help this, to facilitate this?
Well, as a business, we have a sort of a process. We call it the customer first blueprint, which is sort of the first stage in just helping people to understand the art of the possible. I think a lot of businesses, when we talk to them, they don't really know, what can be achieved, what kind of tools, messaging, sort of how a narrative structure can be built. They've never done it before. So we take them through this sort of initial phase of sitting down with, the sort of the sales team, marketing, maybe sort of the product managers, and just getting everybody to input on what sort of an ideal customer conversation would be. What do their customers really need? How do you kind of tell that story? And that's really good, because it gets buy-in from everybody within a business, because consensus is so important. And quite often we find sales teams, they're like, marketing's come up with another product or tool, which they're just sort of forcing upon us. They're the sort of the people, sales, that are at the coalface. They're talking to customers, they understand the challenges. So it's really them that, we want to bring into this and help them, support them in those conversations. That's really, really key.
Yeah, we hear a lot of talk from government downwards about the environmental policies, green technologies. I mean, what benefits can your company offer other business that are trying to pursue more environmentally friendly policies?
Yeah, well, I think there's a number of things. I mean, certainly in terms of trade shows, live events, clearly there's a big impact there in terms of sort of travel, logistics, getting machinery there. It's a huge expense, and it's also, there's a lot of travel involved, all the printed collateral. So we've definitely seen, with the sort of the virtual exhibitions, businesses are seeing a huge advantage in terms of savings in terms of costs. Clearly, the customers as well aren't traveling. So, that is quite a big impact. And similarly, in terms of just sales tools, in terms of logistics, sales reps being out on the road, it's time consuming, it's time that they could be spent doing more important things rather than sitting in cars and traveling. So there's a great amount of savings to be made there. And similarly for customers, as I said, they're very conscious of time. And this kind of plays into how they like to do business as well.
We haven't got a great deal of time left, so let's just touch on this briefly, and perhaps we can talk more about this in another programme. But I want to briefly finish by looking forward to some of the new technologies. We touched on it earlier, Industry 4, AR, AI, VR, 3D printing, all of these new technologies. How important then is it for businesses, all businesses, to embrace and adopt?
Well, I wouldn't say that, that they should sort of rush out and grab hold of the next sort of fancy, shiny piece of technology. We always tell people, just slow down. Let's look at the business case. What does this new piece of technology, does it add anything in terms of value to your business? Obviously, we all know about augmented reality, mixed reality, VR. Everybody's very excited about VR, but we're kind of, slow down. I think it's still in its very early stages. Other technologies like augmented reality, I think that is already a very valuable tool. We're certainly seeing it, for instance, with Bosch in terms of their machinery and customers being able to sort of see a sort of a 3D model, how it sits within a factory space. That is proving very, very valuable indeed, that kind of technology. But of course, there's sort of, 3D printing. There's all sorts of new shiny things out there. I think it's just a case of, as I say, slowing down, not getting overexcited for Christmas, and really looking at the business case.
Right, let's finish off then. I want, if I could, Damian, to get a wish or it can be the same thing, prediction for 2021, and please no global health crises for next year. But what would your wish and prediction be for the new year?
Well, I think unfortunately, one's got to mention it, and I really hope we can all get back to business as usual next year. Brexit as well, we just want to get it done, whichever way it goes. Business just needs certainty, really, so we can just crack on and get on with what we do best, really. I think at the moment that's really what I'm hoping for, because it's quite sad to see the devastation out there, really. And although some businesses, we have done well out of it, I still don't think that's it's great. But, I think we have a bright future. Manufacturing, definitely. I mean, there's so many fantastic initiatives out there. We've got a great industry, really world leading. And I just think, businesses like yours, we need to get the message out there and just say, how fantastic we really are as an industry, as a country. That's my hope for next year.
Damian, thank you very much. I'm just going to write the cheque out to appreciate the plug for MTD as well. So thank you very much indeed for that. It's great to talk to you, Damian. Thank you very much. Appreciate your time, and have a great Christmas and a very happy and prosperous 2021. We'll be back with more major names from British business, of course, in the new year. But in the meantime, take care.